Hey, this is DeCarmine here, and I have a special guest with me today, the owner and creator, Steve Roberts, with Fitter After 40. He's an exercise physiologist, a personal trainer with over 20 years experience in the health and fitness industry. Steve, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here and really let our listeners know about how they can get healthier over 40. So welcome.
G'day, Len. Thought you might like that. Being Australian, mate, I had to put that one in there. But hello all, and thanks for having me today. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you and helping with some thoughts around how to get fitter faster after 40. And really, I guess it all stems for me for the purpose of why I want to be healthy myself. I have children. I have a wife, and I want to see them grow up. And I love life too much, so that's why I want to be healthy.
No, I love it. But what made you want to do this for men over 40? What really inspired you to help them be able to become, a lot fitter?
My father passed away when he was 50. He was diagnosed with cancer about 6 months before that, and that kind of brought down my world quite quickly, as you can imagine. I was just 17 at the time. So a young boy trying to become into a man. I was in my last year of school, a fair bit of turmoil already with knowing not knowing what you're going to do after you finish school. And with that news, I kind of jokingly say it was a bit of a let off that I could fail my exams because I had a fairly good reason.
Sure.
So I sort of threw the towel into my studies. And unfortunately, my dad passed away about 6 months after he was diagnosed. So thinking that your hero would never die, it's a bit like Superman, has his kryptonite, so he died. So that to me was a big moment in my life, big crisis. I'm one of four. I'm the youngest. And from there, Mum, did her best to look after us and to nurture us as a mother. But we were starting to grow up to be young adults as well, so we were finding our own way. And with lots of, challenges with life growing up as a young man, I did battle with some demons around that, and I use that term demons in a sense of they were things that I just used in order to make myself feel better. I had drugs and I had alcohol. Relationships weren't quite solid with women. So I was trying to sort of work through life without having a mentor or father around me. And I discovered one day after I was about 26, I thought, I want to go to university. Actually, I was a bit younger than that. So I was about 24. I thought, right, bugger this. I want to go to university. I don't want to do this job, which I used to identify myself with. So now I've got into health and fitness. And I've been involved in that since 1998, really, for my graduate years. So, and then graduated in 2002. So, 20 years in the health and fitness industry, all stemmed really from that moment in my life when my dad passed away. And, to add to that, I don't want to see dads die early. That's a given. And I don't want to see young boys, young girls left without a father from a preventable disease that can be avoided through lifestyle habits and interventions.
No, I love everything that you're saying here. You really had a big why there, especially with your father passing, losing that, being a father of three, wanting to be able to be in their lives and be able to physically do things with them and watch them grow up, and you being healthy and living a healthier lifestyle. Because I know as men, we get lost along the way. We get lost in our relationships. We're overworked. We're overstressed. We're drinking caffeine left and right just to, keep ourselves focused and moving forward. And we have our vices. We do end up getting into drugs and alcohol, porn as well, and it takes us away from our purpose and our passions in life, and we
That's
just
right.
kind of get lost in the mix of things.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
and I have to admit, I've been there too. I've um, been down that road as well, like yourself. And once I started to give up alcohol and live a more healthier lifestyle, I started to see a lot of changes in myself. I'll admit I still have the occasional drink here and there, but it's not something I routinely do all the time now.
Yeah.
I look forward to getting up and going hiking in the morning. I feel more energized, more refreshed, um, more alive now, being healthier. But I know a lot of men struggle. So how can people start maintaining their health? I mean, I've been working out since I was 16. I've kind of been in and out of it here and there. Some guys may not even be been doing it at all.
Mm.
How can men start maintaining this new healthier lifestyle? And why is it so difficult for us to do?
So I'll start with the how.
Okay.
It's the how is really you can to use your I guess way of assessment there is to find out what your why is.
Hmm.
So how is the why in a sense? So if they think, okay, how can I do something? It's almost, well, why do I want to do something? So with the why, it almost becomes part of the action, because how can I run a half marathon, or how can I run a 5 kilometer run, which I'd like to do, becomes almost like your why. Well, like, because I want to feel good about myself, I want to get healthy. So then that can lead into running
Hmm.
in that way, I guess. But in search of everything that is on the internet, it can get us quite bogged down in ideas and different opinions and starting points and quick fixes. I think a really simple thing to do is to start walking if you can walk,
Hmm.
and really then start to bring in some stretching and some breathing activities. So you're really slowly getting in tune with your body. I listened to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how PE in schools, and I think it's the same in the States as well. They started taking out gymnastics around the 60s and 70s
Hmm.
and started bringing in competitive sports. And I think that's had an effect on the generations of people who have been through those systems, because they're not able to identify where their body's at in time and space. It's quite important in gymnastics, and that body awareness that you get through gymnastics. And with that, if you take away the competitiveness of gymnastics, it's really about getting in touch with your body.
Hmm.
We've probably lost that ability, or even had that education around looking after ourselves as well as they did back in the before the 60s, 70s. So with that change in the generations of PE, even within schools, it becomes more competitive these days. So we're probably now hardwired to thinking, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be good at it. And if I don't win, I'm a loser. And that then can breed self doubt in men, especially when they think, well, I'm going to come second or I'm going to come last. Again, I'll be laughed at. So if
Sure.
you can revert away from the competitive nature of health and fitness and look at just the more internal self appreciation and self feeling and being inspired around getting to know your own body, you'll be in touch with it so much better and be able to identify what's going on inside, like a change in when you go to the bathroom, or something's not quite feeling right. You be in touch with it. And if I can bring that back to my father, he had a lump in his body that was probably that size by the time they opened him up.
So a
And
size, what you said, size of quarter?
a golf ball, I think, or
Golf
something like
ball?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, but my dad was a veterinarian, so a person who's familiar with diseases in animals
Hmm.
wasn't able to identify one in himself, because he was running a business, had 4 kids at boarding school with bills to pay and a mortgage. So all those things can cloud us from really getting in touch with ourselves. So the best thing I could advise guys on: start walking, start stretching, and then things will flow from there, because they'll build confidence and fitness around that.
Yeah. So start out small, achievable, and manageable goals. Is
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there really a secret? I mean, is it? I mean, we've seen so many different exercise equipment come out over the years, products. I mean, is there really a secret, or is it just you just showing up and being consistent? Is that really the big secret, or are all these magic pills and all this stuff really that effective?
The secret's actually literally the truth, and the secret is not really even the right word for it. It's just a matter of fact is that there's no magic to it.
Mhm.
It's there are shortcuts and there are hacks, and the shortcuts that the industry tries to teach you is worth $87 billion in a lot of cases. It's a massive industry. So, and I'm not saying that to diss the industry because it does a lot of amazing things, but there's lots of money to be made out of the fitness industry. You've got supplements, you've got equipment, you've got, you know, magazines and lots of published literature around it. But I guess where I'm going here is that the hacks that people can start doing for themselves are free. The hack would be that if you normally have breakfast in the morning at the same time, your body identifies that and accepts that fuel or whatever type of food it is. It'll accept that and it'll go, right, nothing's going to change. I'm not going to move. So you're not going to lose weight by eating breakfast the same time every day. If you pull that breakfast out and then let that go and do a little bit of fasting until lunch, the next thing you know, your body's going to say, oh, okay, there's something different going on here. While there's no food in my liver waiting for me to use, or my muscles, I'll go and start scavenging somewhere else, and it'll start to look for other sources of energy to keep it alive and well. So that's the introduction of fasting. That's going to help reduce the calories that you have in your body, and that's going to start helping, utilize fat as a source of fuel. So they're little simple 3 things you can do. Other hacks you can do: get out in the cold winter every now and again, or cold weather, or have a cold shower, because that shock or that little bit of a change in temperature can speed up your metabolism, but also speed up the use of brown fats. We have brown fat deposits in our body, less as we get older, more as we're a child. Those brown fats are then ignited, if you like, from cold temperatures, and they can speed up the utilization and burning of fat for fuel. So simple hacks, and then the final one really is not even a hack. It's just get some really good sleep.
Okay.
Sleep well, and sleep deep. Make sure it's nice and dark, and you'll feel so much better for it, because our body heals itself when you go to bed at night. And for people who watch TV and watch screens and things like that, all you're doing is interrupting that pattern that you're supposed to have for your body to revitalize and to, repair damaged muscle tissue and really just unwind. We're too wired up these days, Len.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, we're always in front of our computers, on our phones, drinking, energy drinks nonstop, coffee, and we're overstimulated.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue, and that's why a lot of men are very irritated, agitated. They don't know what to do with themselves. They get frustrated, short-tempered a lot, because we're just overly stimulated. But being able to exercise, get out with nature, view things with our eyes, not be taking our phones to take pictures of everything and leaving our phone home, and getting away from those energies that these pieces of equipment are always, placing upon us, is going to make your life a lot easier and a lot healthier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, just to give you a bit of an insight there, we were having some fertility issues many years ago, and we sought some support around that, and that was one of the things that they recommended, that we remove from ourselves, especially when we go to bed at night. So our phones, put that into the next room, turn it on flight mode, not have our heads near any electrical stimulus and any of those waves that could come through us. That's difficult if you live in a high rise or a highly dense area, but doing your best to make your environment nice and natural and calm and relaxing is a very good way to de-stress. And as you said, walking is great as well.
Yeah. Now, I just want to real quick. I want to go back to sleeping real quick. Do you need 8 hours of sleep, or can you do less? What is your recommendation on sleep?
You can do less. I'm not an expert in sleep, but I do know that if you're able to, and I have experienced it, if you're able to have a process of winding down, your body recognizes that it's shutting down, and your quality of sleep is going to be much greater. Now, the quality is important here because in the first 4 to 5 hours, your body will go through that process of clean up, as I mentioned before, that autophagy in a sense. It'll start to scavenge around, because if it hasn't eaten for 4 or 5 hours, like it does during the day, it'll start to go, right, how am I going to keep the heart beating? How am I going to keep the breathing pattern going? So it starts to look for things. So it's important to get that good quality sleep in that 4 to 6 hour window, so that those processes can happen. A great way to do it, and I guess the strategy here is a 3-2-1-0 method. Bouchant, I think his name is, Brendan Bouchant.
Sorry?
Bouchant. Yeah, he's got a 3-2-1-0 method, and I'm sure others do as well. 3 hours before you go to bed, no more, nothing more to eat.
Okay.
Only drink, and maybe some black tea or something like that, or herbal tea. 2 hours before you eat, before you go to bed. No work, so nothing to keep you stimulated. No emails, no text messages, and then 1 hour before you go to bed, make sure there's no TV on, and any other sort of screens as well. So that would include reading from a Amazon
Kindle
book or Kindle book, something like that. Yeah, so you can see really by starting to adapt simple changes like that, you're going to get that winding down process. You can go into a deep sleep. 0 is the amount of times you hit the snooze button.
Okay. Great. No, I love the hacks that you've been giving. They've been great so far. There's things there I didn't even realize myself that I'm learning today from this episode. So I appreciate you sharing these hacks. I want to dive into fasting. I know this is something that I wrote a lot with your program. You do challenges around it. Can you talk a little bit about fasting? Why fasting is useful, the way you teach it? I know there's different ways you can fast. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, sure. So fasting's been around for, I don't know, something like 10,000 years or a bit longer, I guess. So it's nothing new. I'm simply just adopting some of the principles around fasting and using some of the processes around fasting to introduce to my clients that I work with. It's not easy to get people to accept that they can't eat in order to achieve a goal. They have to come to that. Decision themselves. I can't tell them what to do, because if I tell them what to do in a sense of this is what you have to do, they won't get that buy-in. So first and foremost, you have to accept that you have to take something away, something big like food, in order to control the way that things could be getting out of hand for you. So you can take away alcohol, you can take away, social media, you can take away cigarettes and drugs, pornography, and any gambling addictions, any other sort of addictions you have. But that's all good. But if you're constantly eating and eating, that's not going to change your behavior with regards to eating. That's an addiction as well, right? So some of the greats have done fasting before, and it's good to lean on their CV as a good way to say it's good for you. Socrates, Plato, Hippocrates, lots of great people, of course, really embellished in fasting. The way I like to get people to start to adopt fasting is by simply skipping a meal, like a breakfast in the morning or something like that, and then pushing their eating out a little bit further to, say, lunchtime. And by doing that, if you look at a 24-hour schedule, if they normally they finish eating at 8 o'clock at night and they have breakfast the next morning, that's a 12-hour window, what I call a 12 and 12. That's simple maths.
Sure.
You might want to start out by doing a 14 and 10, which means you don't eat until 10 a.m. the next day, or a 16 and 8, which means you don't eat until 12 o'clock the next day. It's always good to maybe knock off 1 hour every week if you wanted to just start that, until you get to around about a 20 and 4, which is a 20-hour fast and a 4-hour eating window. That's when you can start to look at really putting a few days together, 24 to 48 hours and so on. And the benefit of that is, well, the intermittent fasting windows, which are just the short ones,
Mhm.
They're good for just starting to get some changes in your body. Hormesis is a type of stress that we need to have
Sure.
in order to keep us alive. Too much of it, like toxins and poisons, can kill us. Too little of it, and we're not really going to budge or change at all. In fact, we'll just get fatter and lazier and die early. So
Yeah.
there has to be a certain amount of good stress that we have to have in order to stay alive and keep in touch with our, I guess, our primitive behaviors and innate um, things that we have inside us. So that's why fasting is good, because it makes you kind of want a bit more. And then if you're able to put some discipline around that, you're able to really see some progress in your weight loss and even your cognitive approach on how you think and how you feel. And maybe you can observe things because you're not eating more. You can observe things within yourself that you think, well, normally I have a snack this time, and because I didn't, that's really self-empowering.
Mhm.
And then by increasing the duration that you don't eat, increasing your fast, that'll give you a lot of sense of power and commitment to maybe do it a bit longer, because up until about 48 hours, you're not going to get any huge changes of fat loss. The real meat, the pun intended there, is that it's really going to happen 48 to 72 hours from not eating. And with that, you need some support from a group. Fellowship is a massive thing, and
Yeah.
having a process and a model around that is really important.
Okay. So on average, when would somebody start seeing some changes with fasting? I know everybody's body's a little bit different, but typically, what have you seen that somebody might be able to start seeing some changes?
Yeah, so I have I run a challenge, a 5-day challenge, and it's called the Intermittent Fasting Challenge. And guys start seeing changes after a day.
Okay.
I'm literally, I see 1 kilogram a day, half a kilogram a day for most guys. So the if you stick to a method such as a 14 and 10, say for example, you don't eat until mid-morning next day, or even you don't even to lunchtime, every day for 5 days, you should lose between 2.5 and 5 kgs.
Okay.
So if you want to start on weight loss and you don't want to exercise, that's fine. Just don't eat until lunchtime and
Mhm.
then see what happens. Experiment with yourself. And then, of course, when you do eat, it's the quality of food that you need to eat, which is important as well. You can't just go straight to McDonald's or KFC or Taco Bell and pig out. You've got to have the right choice of food. What to eat, keep it simple. If it's got a face and if it's from the ground, it's good. It's from a packet or it's from the internal aisles of most shopping centers in the world, it's bad. So they're just a couple of little basic tips.
No, no, that's great. Now, is fasting something you should be doing constantly, or is it something you should be doing like every other week? How should somebody build this into their lifestyle?
It Good question, and it depends on what your goal is. It also depends on your state of health. If you're quite healthy and you just want to lose a bit of body fat, and you just want to get trimmed for summer or for a suit
Mhm.
or what it might be, you can just start with some intermittent fasting, and then if that's having an effect and chipping off a few kilograms, that's good. If you're looking to lose a lot of weight, then an approach you can take again is to do some intermittent fasting, but then start to push it out to multiple days with some support, of course, around that and a model. If you want to see your GP, by all means, you should do that to tell them what your intentions are. I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but they're things you can do. When
Yeah.
should you start? Well, if you do feel if you can grab your thumb and your finger like that now, Len, and you
Mhm.
come down here near your waist, and
Okay.
you can squeeze that stuff. Give it a go, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can squeeze that stuff around there,
Squeeze a little
then
fat on
you
the side there.
then you don't need to eat. So it's still there. I mean, I've written written and read some information saying if you've got any more than 4% of body fat, there is fat there that you can utilize by not eating. So we've all got plenty on us. We can
Mhm.
utilize that, and don't be scared of really pushing the envelope there
Yeah.
on seeing how far your body can go, because there's a guy in in the 1970s, he was about 60 when he presented to his doctor. And he was at that stage, he was 200 kilos. So I think that's just short of maybe 450 pounds or something like that. Which is huge, right? He went and saw his GP, and he said to the GP, I might do something about it. He said, well, maybe you can do some fasting, or we can do some caloric restriction. And the guy goes, right, I'll just won't eat. He fasted for 382 days.
Wow.
He lost 120 kilos, and he kept it off.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's possible if you want to lose that much.
Yeah. No. I know personally for myself, I've done fasting. I've done 16 and 8. I've gone 24 hours, 48 hours at times. I seem to constantly plateau. Like I just can't for some reason. And maybe what you said earlier as one of your hacks, like maybe I need to adjust my time when I eat breakfast and so forth. But I seem to always just plateau where I always still have that, that belly fat or a little extra on the side here that I just can never release. Am I doing something wrong, or should I be making some changes?
Perhaps you're not fasting enough to actually get the response that you want. So by doing multi-day fasting, you're going to start to see bigger changes faster. You're going to get more autophagy, which is self-eating.
Sure.
And your body's going to go into ketosis. So it's going to be using a lot more fats for fuel rather than using carbohydrate, because it's all been diminished. There's none around for it to eat. So when your body goes into ketosis, then you're able to utilize the fat that you have, which is stored mostly around your visceral fat, around your organs. It's going to be using that. Personally, I did a 12-week program myself on fasting, and I lost 3.5 kilograms of fat over the 12 weeks. And I'm not a big guy either, so it really attacked and got rid of that visceral fat. Aesthetically, visually, that made a big difference to how I looked. I was a lot leaner on the waist. I actually went from 96 centimeters around the waist to 88 over that time period. I'm not there now. I've put a bit back on, and that's just through choice and maybe a bit of laziness. But I'm able to get to a point, and if I wanted to maintain that, it wouldn't be too hard to maintain, because once you get there, it's pulling on the levers that you need to do with either more intermittent fasting, different time eating windows, and maybe put in some multi-day fasting there, such as at the start of each quarter, maybe do a 2 or 3 day fast, multi-day fast, to challenge yourself and to push yourself, and a bit of a clean-up for your health in general.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that advice. That's something I'll look into, and because right now I'm kind of adjusting my routine a little bit, my eating habits a little bit again. I always like to, I get to the point where I just get bored with my workouts and my diet plan. So I'm to the point right now where it's time for a change. So I need to make some new adjustments in order to keep myself lean the way I'm looking to do, and keep a healthy lifestyle up for myself. Because as I'm aging, we're both the same age. I want to stay attractive. I want to keep my hair longer. I want to try to keep myself fit as much as I possibly can, and live a longer life. Because I know my grandfather died from cancer when he was in his 80s. My grandfather died from a heart attack when he was 69. And those are the things I need to be aware of, as personally, as I'm aging, to make sure that I'm on top of those things. Making sure that I'm not running into those things, and living a healthy lifestyle as much as I possibly can.
And your genetic makeup, it's almost has a pact with yourself that when you're in your 20s and 30s and that sort of child rearing and child raising years, it'll try and keep you healthy as possible. That's why people don't usually die from chronic diseases at that age. Yeah. Obviously, it's until later, after you've passed those years, all bets are off. Sure. You're on your own. We're not going to keep you alive. It'll destroy you pretty quickly. So the abuse and the addictions, maybe not so much abuse, but the addictions and procrastination and self-doubt that a lot of guys have need to be practiced by their equal but opposite virtue. So the opposite of procrastination is in my book. It's more about connection. If you are procrastinating on something, it means you don't have any accountability with anything. So by having an accountability partner or a higher authority, someone you look up to, or someone who's an advisor in an area that you want to improve on, you can turn that procrastination around pretty quickly. That's why a lot of people hire personal trainers. That's not always affordable for everybody, but having that team and that environment, not necessarily your family, is really important, such as men's health groups, as we're in here now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. It's having that tribe of of men that can keep you accountable, to help you move forward, to be able to, guide you as a team. Because you're right, your personal trainers aren't always affordable, depending on where you are in your budget. But having a good friend, or being part of a fitness program of some sort, or just a group of guys that can help motivate you, and have your own little cheerleading squad behind you to help get you motivated and move forward some of those areas that are challenging. Because lack of belief, that little mind chatter, that self-doubt, that insecurity does start to creep in, especially when you see younger guys at the gym, or guys at your age that are already in better shape than you are. It makes you a little reluctant to show up. I can't do it. I can't keep up with those guys. And having that right support.
And men are quick to lean on the fact that they're busy as an excuse or a reason to justify why they're not in the shape that their counterpart is, or younger guys. I'm from the country in Australia, and it's quite common to hear in circles of men saying that they're flat out. Busy, really busy, but they're sitting there with their beer in their hand, telling the story with a bit of a gut that they're busy. Okay, no worries, that's fine. But I know from being a bit more honest with them, with people that I know, but sometimes people I don't know, and saying, well, are you too busy to look after your health? Are you too busy to add more years to your life? And that's where it's a bit confronting for a lot of people. But I find that usually, if people are in the back of their mind thinking about maybe even laying awake at night thinking, shit, I'm getting old now, I look this way, what can I do? There's always an opportunity to turn that back around. So, don't give up, of course, is the catch cry there. Or just off the back of that procrastination, one of the other problems a lot of guys I find have is that self-doubt. And the opposite to sort of self-doubt as a virtue is being process orientated. Because when we follow process, think of someone in the military, or someone in the police force, or an SAS soldier, or that sort of high tactical minded people. They're very process orientated. They're very detailed. So even leaning in on the detail of what a day should look like, you get up at 5 a.m. or you get up at the same time every day. You drink water before you do that. You make your bed. Some of these really basic principles that they teach, at some schools and militaries, and some sporting teams and athletes would follow that. It's a process as well. And then finally, it's really facing your addictions. If your addictions are causing the self-doubt and the procrastination, then you got to lean into that one, because if there's an addiction, you're not doing anything that's good for your health. So therefore, you're procrastinating on it. So if you're procrastinating on it, perhaps there's some sort of self-doubt that you can achieve it. So constantly they're kind of going around in this cycle, and it's called the cycle of death. So, those addictions can be overcome by practicing a virtue such as having a model. And so if a model is like go to the gym 3 times a week, then that's going to help you move away from those addictions potentially by going to the gym at 6 p.m. in the afternoon on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So having a model on what to do, when to do it, of course, is going to help in your calendar. And then therefore you should be really confronting those 3 big problems a lot of guys face.
No, I love that, Steve, what you brought up here. And going back to time management, we all have 24 hours in a day. We all have 7 days a week. It all depends if it's a priority to you. And some of these, as you said, the guy sitting on the porch with his beer, his health is not a priority to him, so he's going to come up with excuses, and say he wants to do it, but not do it because he's not that motivated to go ahead and do it. But we all have the same time. I squeeze in time every single day to work out. I make it part of my work day. I consider like my day doesn't start until my work day doesn't start until I start working out, and then I work that into the rest of my work schedule and what I need to do. So
you look at 1 hour to do a workout, it's 4% of your day. And as Tony Robbins said, if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people who aren't as busy as him. So if they can say that they don't have time, then they're just kidding themselves.
I agree completely. See, I want to jump into a little bit more about what you do, your products that you have, the services that you offer. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that? Can you share a little bit about your program, what somebody can expect, and then
sure thing.
How somebody can get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. So I have a website called Fitter After 40, FITTER After 40. So it's just one word. So there's a website. Also an email, steve@fitterafter40.com.au for Australia. So there's that point of contact if you wanted to reach out to me. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, all those social channels. So I guess the entry point for our meeting would be a phone call, and we could literally have a brainstorming call to find out what it is that you want, what it is that you would like to have that you haven't been able to get. Some of my clients have now testified that they haven't felt this good in 20 years.
Right.
That's a really good rap for them that they've been able to achieve that. It's also very complimentary to my program that I've given them some advice and support around for them achieving that. So if you're stuck with something that you've had for a long time and you want to fix it, see a technician like myself who can help you achieve that in your life. That's what I do. I'm an online coach, so I service and provide support for guys anywhere in the world via the internet. That we do meetings on a regular basis. We do group calls with the other guys in the team, and with the process around that, if we do fasting in your program, there'll be other guys doing the same sort of thing. So there is that support within there. I also have an app, a Fitter After 40 fitness app. So I have all my exercise and my plans within that app. So my clients just go to their daily workout and they press go and they follow the timer. They follow the exercise. If they don't know how to do it, they'll just watch a video on it. And I'm always available to provide some support. So they have an exercise program. They have a coaching program, which I have as part of my course, and that coaching teaches them more about fasting, more about exercise, nutrition, recovery, lots of those important categories of health and wellness.
Okay.
And I guess the big driver for me is assessing, reassessing, because what gets measured gets managed. So we do online assessments. So they simply send in a photo. From that photo, I can quickly bring up via an app to show them what their body composition is like. And when you see a photo of yourself with a pair of underpants on, it can be quite confronting for people, a bit embarrassing, but that's what they need to go through in order to start going, right, I don't want to look like this. I hate the way I look. I want to do something about it. So there's a driver there. And then getting the follow-up of that photo, a month, 2 or 3 months later to see the change, it's actually going to give you some motivation and encouragement around that. So there's constant assessments. I have a science background, so I like data, and I'm a bit of a geek like that. But I like to show reports for my clients on how they're performing, because they're employing me to be their guide on this, and I want to make sure that information is transparent and we have honest conversations, because a lot of people say they do things, but deep down they may not be doing every single thing that comes out of their mouth, because it's just the way that they've gotten away with things in the years, and probably the reason why they might be looking the way they are. So my program is we have, I guess, a saying, be 40, look 30, but feel 20.
Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
No, see, I love it. Your program is very detailed, and you're really taking a man on his journey of where he is now to where he needs to be. And it sounds like you have the systems and the strategies and the steps, and definitely the experience, especially being in the business for over 20 years, to get somebody to where they need to be. Just as long as they're putting in the work, it sounds like you're putting in the work to really help them see themselves from a whole new light.
One thing that I've brought into my own programming the last 12 months has been more around masculine initiation.
Okay.
So the word initiation can shock a lot of people,
Sure.
and they can even start to conjure up thoughts in their minds about what initiation is. Now, that's not where we take you out into the dark woods and torture you.
Oh, that's good.
That's not where we throw spears into your leg and to see if you're a man or not. But there is components of initiation that they do in ancient tribes that you can replicate and soften, if you like, that you can do over the internet. And by giving direction around that and some support around that, guys are able to really face some challenges they're having with themselves by doing some initiation type activities and tasks. And also doing it out is a part of that. I have austerities that I like men to stick by. Austerities are things more sort of in religious circles, but related to things that you need to avoid doing so that you improve. The first one is, of course, when we get up the same time every day, we make our bed. So to me, that is actually literally a thing that guys can tick off as being good for their health.
Sure.
And fasting is a big part of the austerities as well. Fasting, having a fasting routine, because they're able to focus more so on what their intent is on the day rather than focusing on what's for dinner tonight. So that masculine initiation is paying off with the guys who are doing those. I do missions of that, and that's really interesting to hear the feedback from some of the men. They kind of revert back to their teenage years when they're at cadet camp or some sort of core camp.
Sure.
Or even rugby or sporting tours where they have to do without certain things, and they do things that they don't normally do in daily life. But some don't go that far down the road of being without things for most of their life, and that's the problem. We're overconsumed, we're overfed, and we're basically spoilt tomatoes. That's why we get sick easily. That's why we're quite soft, really. So if we look at our forefathers, go back 100, 150, 200 years, they're a lot harder than us. And, to be honest, that's the problem. There's too many comforts in our world. There's a good book called Death by Comfort by Paul Taylor. I'll just give it a bit of a wrap here if you can want to look at that up. But that's a really good insight into some fasting methods, and some great hacks you can use as well. I know Paul through my association, I guess. But there's lots of great books out there about manning up and being stronger. There's lots of great advice out there. You can search the internet, or you can find people like you and I who can give people the fast way and the easy way. And that's not a sales tip. That's basically saying, well, you can do it the hard way and go and learn this on your own, or you can seek advice from people like us who are doing it with people all the time and achieving some great results.
No, Steve, I loved everything you said. I love the initiation. I love that you're diving deep with people, deep with men, in getting them back to where their younger days, to some level, and bringing back that energy that they had at one point. That being inspired again, that they can do it again. Even though they might be 20 years, 30 years older, that energy is still alive within inside them. And
there's also, thank you, mate. There's also a part of that which needs to be separation, and learn about separating from our vices. So, with going back to addictions, so a lot of guys have addictions to, I've mentioned before, alcohol, pornography, drugs, smoking weed, playing games, watching a lot of social media. All those things are some form of addiction. Work is an addiction as well. So by going through a stage of separating yourself through process and through learning more about what separation means, and separation can also mean in a intersexual dynamic level, can also mean separating from your mother as well. So there's some Freudian type Jungian information there that I teach guys about being identifying what their source of behavior is caused from. And it might have been that they were given foods to comfort them when they were younger by their mother, and they might have confided in their mother, because a lot of men don't go through masculine initiation with their own fathers because their fathers also grew up without initiation themselves. They grew up with the tit in the mouth, if I can use those words loosely, but that's probably why they're soft as well. So the mothers don't really have a mentor for their children, especially their boys, to look up to. So it's continued to perpetuate, and the mother then becomes they wear the pants in the family. So that's another subject I know entirely, but understanding that they need to separate themselves from those boyish behaviors, drugs, alcohol, smoking, cigarettes, pornography, all that stuff. If they can separate themselves away from that, they're going to start moving into the warrior aspect of their archetype, and then to kingsmanship, which is a higher level, of course, but for them to rise up as men and to be generative, men as men who have an effect on other men and boys. That's a big one to work towards, because long after we're gone, if they can still talk about our virtues, then we know we've done something pretty good. But if we're here just wasting time and passing the buck on to someone else and blaming other people, then we're not going to get spoken about. That's a big fear for a lot of people. I think it's about having a legacy. So
I was about to say that legacy,
Yeah, and that's a part of my course, because as I've said at the start, my dad died at 50, and people still talk about my dad, 20, nearly 30 years later, and that's great. So some of his strong virtues, people still remember, and I guess that's another motivator for me to have that effect on people as well. I want people like my dad. I don't want to be like my dad, but they're things for me to aspire to, and I'll always remember.
Great. No, so I've loved everything you said. This show has been amazing. The tips, the information that you have provided is going to blow guys away, because you've really given some great advice here. I just want to end it with this, Steve. What is one word? What's some words of wisdom that you can leave us with, real quick? I know you already shared a lot. What's something that has inspired, some words of wisdom that inspired you, or anything that you would like to share, real quick?
I'll share one from my dad, which I always remember. It's a little bit of a poem.
Okay.
It said, "When a job has once begun, leave it till it's not done. Be it large or be it small, do it well, but not at all."
Amazing. I love it, Steve. Everybody, Steve Roberts with Fitter After 40. Please reach out to Steve. He's an amazing, amazing individual. I've known Steve for a while now. His program is exceptional. He will train you anywhere in the world, and he has what it takes. As you can already hear, the knowledge and the expertise that this man has just been throwing out during this episode. So please reach out to him. I'll have all his links and information for you. And Steve, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Len. Happy to have a chat with you guys, and I'm really excited about what you're doing and what we can create together. Thanks, Len.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing more. Thanks a lot for your time, Steve, and you have a great day.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, guys.